Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. This is our anime podcast where every 2 weeks we watch a new anime, we come together on this podcast to talk about it, and then we turn it over to you for further discussion because we are truly a bunch of Bakas who don't know what we're talking about. And this week we switched more to our regular style. We've had some rough waters the past couple episodes, but we are back in top form with an anime called Bungo Stray Dogs. And to talk about it, we have my co-host. First off, we have the adamantium to my Wolverine. Jeremy, what you been up to?
Supporting our D20, or not D20, Edge of the Empire campaign. God, show my age. No, D6, West End Yahtzee.
Ooh, so good.
Show my age.
You know, in the Edge of the Empire, you roll almost as many dice as that West End. Like, it feels good to pick up a pile and throw them down.
And I still get terrible rolls.
Yeah, you do. You just had wash rolls so much. I do remember there were times, though, when we would, like, overbuild the characters or their skills, and you'd have, like, 17, 18 dice. I think maybe we were breaking rules. I don't know, but it was fun.
17 dice plus 4.
Plus 4. Don't forget that plus 4. Other than that, not a whole lot. Goofing off a little bit in XCOM 2. Finally got that, and the Long War is kicking my butt.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it should be. So
I want to join you in that. Actually, that Mario Rabbids game was announced, and it's making me want to play XCOM.
Well, you know, that game actually looks really cool when you had me watch the video.
But it's on a dirty Switch. Those dirty switches.
Well, there's 2 games.
All right. We also have the Southern Charm to my Rogue. Jason, what you been up to?
Wow.
That's her power, right? That she's charming?
Southern Charm?
No, her power is to suck the life out of anyone she touches. Anyways. Speaking of sucking the life out of my soul, I got the itch to play Skyrim again after the announcement from E3. What is it? VR they're bringing to Fallout 4 and Skyrim. But of course, the special edition, the modding community just has not been able to crack that nut yet. So, and also it sounds like a lot of them are just getting old and not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
So loaded up the old original cruddy console version, modded it up to where I wanted it. I actually restrained myself and only got up to about 170 mods, so I think we're okay.
Do you think it'll work this time?
Do you even notice 170 tweaks to the game?
Yes. Like, for instance, the weather, I'll notice. The combat, I'll notice. The lighting. So the lighting. Oh my god. It's fantastic.
I'll never understand need for the mod, but we've had a lot of discussions this week about Skyrim and other games. I think we just have to come to a point where I get something different out of my gaming than you guys do, for sure. Sure. And that's okay. That's okay. Everyone gets to be wrong, and you guys can be too. It's fine.
We'll take turns. You can. I'll go on. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. My name is Troy. I am the spit shine on the bald head of Professor Xavier to this group.
Oh.
There you go, Jason. I covered for you.
I appreciate
it. So, because a certain anime that I've talked about almost every episode we've done has been so good, I fell back into the shonen hole. Like, I want it. And so I traced back. I'm like, okay, so My Hero Academia I have to watch once a week. What else is there? Well, what inspired it? Naruto.
No.
Well, I've already seen Naruto.
And it's over.
And it's over, and Boruto's not that good. Guys, Boruto's not that good. Like nothing's happening. It's really rough. I keep my kids are watching and I'm like, hey, has anything happened? No. I'll talk to you next week. But I do remember that a certain member of this podcast recommended me a shonen a long time ago called Hunter x Hunter, and I didn't watch it when he recommended. Sorry about that, Jeremy, because there wasn't an English dub at the time.
Like you said, we all get a chance to be wrong.
There still isn't an English dub, and I decided so I started Hunter x Hunter, and it's very good. And Hunter x Hunter is the thing that inspired Naruto. And all three of these series that I'm liking all do the same thing where it's not Goku power battles. My power level has risen over yours. It's tactics, it's thinking, it's teamwork, it's planning. And
so it's not as good.
I would say based on My Hero Academia's ratings versus Dragon Ball Super, I think we're fine.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Other than that, not much. Yard work, playing basketball. A big basketball tournament where I live is coming up, and I'll probably be dead by the next time we do this podcast. Enjoy Baka 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 with only two hosts. So let's talk about Bungo Stray Dogs. This was Jason's pick, and it is time for us to give our non-spoiler review. So if you have not been following along with us and you want to know if this is worth checking out, here's where you find out. Jason, you chose it. Rate it.
Love it. It's just right up my alley as far as character development, storytelling, and keeping my interest with interesting things that are happening in the world. And the main character has a really, really nice, satisfying, slow burn, coming of age kind of character development, and they tell it beautifully. And I'm emotionally invested in most of the characters. So I would. I'm looking forward to more. So,
Jeremy, how about you?
I really like it. It's. I thought it was a bit slow at the beginning, but if you stick with it past first 3 or 4 episodes, I think it really takes off and it really becomes a fun watch. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
For me, I want to say exactly what you said, but without the really. Like, I liked it. It was good. To me, it just didn't. Other than maybe one episode, I didn't get into that high, that excitement, that anime. Yeah, let's rock. Other than the theme song, which is great.
It's fantastic.
The theme is great. But it just felt very even. Like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't unentertaining ever, but it never was like peaking. It just was kind of like, hey, here's things that are going along. So for the most part, I enjoy it. And I do think what I'm seeing at the end of the season, like Jeremy mentioned, it's getting better. That there was definitely a high near the end, or even 2. So if the second season carries on, and what we mentioned last time we did a podcast, that normal reviews state second season is better than the first season. So if that's the case, then I have no worries about keeping going with this show.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's what you have to go on. You got to make your decision now, because we're about to go into spoilers. You can stay with us. You can let us ruin this plot for you, or you're going to have to reach out and push that pause button. I hate for you to do that much work, Take a break if you want. But yeah, if you don't want to have spoilers, you're going to have to stop here. With that said, let's get started. Guys, this anime starts with a starving young orphan who decides he's going to live, so he's going to mug somebody. He's going to mug the next person he sees, and a motorcycle drives by. And he's like, that doesn't count. They're going too fast. Then the police march by. They probably didn't bring their wallets. And then a man whose legs are sticking out of the river as he floats by goes by. And these are our 2 main characters. So let's talk about this boy who rescues the suicidal guy. His name is Atsushi. He is our main character. We do find out later he has a superpower. We find that out in this very first episode. Guys, what did you think of Atsushi?
At this point in the anime, I didn't know what to think of him because I didn't know if he was sticking around. I didn't know anything about him. And he was kind of this like pathetic wimp. But obviously a heart of gold because he saved this man with his feet sticking out of the water with the intention to rob him. But then he's like, dang it, I saved his life instead.
Yep.
So at this, and like actually, what Jeremy said was fairly accurate. At this point in the anime, it's tough to give it any hard criticism because it was a bit vague as far as what was going on. Because like, if you walked into it blind like I did, you really didn't understand how this was going to develop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jeremy?
So when I started watching it, the only thing that I had really heard was a quick comment from you, Troy, where you said, I'm not too sure about this character's design, if I like it that much. And so I was like, oh, I know exactly who this character is because I don't like this design much either.
The uneven bangs. Maybe it's because my mother's a hairdresser. I don't know. Those bangs are freaking me out the whole anime.
Yes. Yeah. I do think his clothes were pretty interesting later. I don't know. Did they change or did I just get used to them? Like, did he always have those overalls?
They give him an outfit and they give him like fingerless gloves. I do think his character design got a little better.
Yeah. Okay.
Later. Very first episode, he was in rags.
Right.
Oh, okay.
He was in orphan rags, even though the wiki says that he's 18 at this point. Yeah. So I'm not sure how he got kicked out of an orphanage. More like able to go get a job.
He's a neat. He's a neat.
Oh, he's a neat. Okay, perfect.
But I thought that his story was very interesting as far as his backstory goes. But it definitely gave him that chip on his shoulder that made him really interesting to watch. But I didn't like how frequently they would make us rewatch that scene from his history. Like every episode or every 2 episodes.
Every time it started coming up, I was like, yeah, we get it.
This.
They kicked you out.
Yeah, I understand. And I think that they would have been better served to just kind of, draw him with an upset expression or something really intense and trust us to remember his chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, there was no
that time
there.
For something else. Yeah. Otherwise, I thought once he started really interacting with the other characters, he got interesting. But at this very beginning part, I was just bored to tears with him. Super bored.
I couldn't stand him at first. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that was making this show interesting was the other characters, but I couldn't handle this guy. He was so pathetic, and I didn't see any redemption coming in the first couple episodes. I thought I was going to go this whole show not liking him. He does have a very strong character arc. He does become the anime hero that we want him to be. It takes a little longer than I'd like. And he does still, like Jeremy pointed out, he does still seem to whine about that. I got kicked out of an orphanage. Yeah, but you've moved on. You've had a couple battles now. You thought you were worried about that last time and overcame it. Remember? But
a little.
At Sushi at the beginning, I completely disliked. At Sushi at the end, this is a character I can root for.
Totally agree.
So the drowning man he saved. This is Zai, who works for a detective agency of people with superpowers, and his power is
armed detective agency.
The armed detective agency. That's right.
Which only one or two of them has a gun.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Well, but they do mention later that they have to be registered to have these superpowered people working there. So I believe that having a superpower is considered armed by the government.
Oh, okay.
You have to have a license to employ them.
There were also a few other weird things that I kept hearing. Like they were talking about how when they went and they talked to that police officer later when Ranpo was called to that case, the police officer said, oh, yes, I know that people with abilities exist because I've worked with them. That seems to imply that not everybody knows they exist, and yet they exist, and yet there's permits for them and everything. I thought this was a little bit strange.
Yeah, maybe it's not super public knowledge, but like the government's, it's hard to pin it down.
Yeah,
but we do have our super suicidal other main character to talk about. So, what did you guys think of Dazai?
he's hilarious, but I don't like that he romanticizes suicide. I think that's the only thing that really bugs me about this show.
I was wondering if someone was going to mention that, because I can see that being a problem with some people.
Yeah. It's funny, but it's also not funny. And like I can see the funny side of it, and I usually chuckle. But like if I think about it, I'm like, I don't like the idea of romanticizing that he wants to do a double suicide with a pretty woman. Which when I say it, it sounds funny, but like
it's very black humor. Like you have to enjoy black humor to get this character's joke. And when Jeremy goes, I'm sure he'll mention there's a reason behind it.
Yeah.
But even so,
yeah,
it is a very heavy topic to be making jokes about. It is very dark gallows humor.
It really is.
I do love his interactions because he's with just about everyone around him, because he either is manipulating somebody or he's just messing with people's heads, and it comes off just beautifully. Like the writing is really well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot more to him than we're allowed to see in most of the scenes. We do get a few scenes where, he really lets the real him shine, but he's certainly got a facade up, and this is part of his facade. Now, interestingly, all of these different characters in Bungo Stray Dogs, just in case in the audience you're not aware of this yet, they are references to existing, or rather dead, deceased authors. These ones, of course, are Japanese authors. However, later there are other authors that come into play as well. So Dazai himself is a reference to Osamu Dazai, and this guy actually did try to kill himself multiple times. Now, I'll give a very brief synopsis of this, but I think it's really interesting info that puts it in a new light. He was actually, he idolized another author of his time who happens to be Akutagawa. Now, you'll know that this is basically the main villain of our season.
Oh, man.
He idolized him, and Akutagawa committed suicide 2 years before Dazai's first attempt. So a lot of people theorize that he actually got the idea and wanted to do that to follow suit. He tried to do it by overdosing, and he failed. In 1930, he, like 5 years later or something, he again overdosed, but this time with a pretty woman. They double suicided. She died.
His character is obsessed. His character becomes obsessed with double suicide with a pretty woman.
Well, this is the first time. She died. He didn't. So later he tries to hang himself, and that fails. Later, he tries to commit double suicide with his wife, his first wife, because he caught her cheating on him. So they try to commit suicide together. So there's a second double suicide, and that fails. There wasn't any information that I found as to whether or not she died in that one. And then finally, he succeeded in committing double suicide with a lover of his by drowning.
Oh my God.
So attempted suicide by himself twice and double suicide 3 times. It makes sense why at the end of it, he's like singing about double suicide. I think that maybe they're like plotting along the events of his life course. Because you remember there's a time where he's looking up at the ceiling at a rafter, and he's like, do you think it would support my weight? And stuff. I mean, obviously he starts with drowning, and that's supposed to be that was the end of his story. So maybe not. Maybe I'm all washed up. But it was just really interesting seeing that they hit all the key notes there.
It was something I was laughing at, especially in the beginning, because I was waiting for the shoe to drop of the reason. I thought he was going to be an immortal and or something like that. There would be some I'm cursed, and so there's a reason for this, and it just comes down to, and with the history that makes sense, but in the context of the show, it does not. It's just a weird personality quirk that he has. The one that made me laugh the most, though, was when he was in the barrel, and he's like, I was trying to commit suicide in this barrel. Turns out it was just a torture technique. I read it wrong.
Yep.
Or when he gets high on shrooms. Dazai high on shrooms might be the highlight of this entire anime.
Great. Yeah. As far as the name of his ability, No Longer Human, that's actually the title of one of his last books, which was believed to be, at least, seems like people are agreed on this, that it's an autobiography as well. So,
as far as outside of the suicide stuff, I love this character trope of I'm I'm silly. I'm not taking anything seriously, and yet there's a dark underbelly to that. There's wisdom and knowledge. One of the first ones I remember seeing was Bash the Stampede, and I absolutely love that trope. It might be my favorite character trope there is, because as a person who likes to get silly, if you can imagine, I'd like to imagine there's a serious the ethereal side to me.
That's right.
Super serious,
so,
like for asking.
I really latch on to characters like this, so I did really like this character. He's probably my favorite. Jeremy, I think he's your favorite too.
He is my favorite.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of how nothing ever seemed to faze him, because he'd already gotten to the point where he's like, what are you going to do? Kill me? I'm constantly trying to kill me. You don't scare me. Go ahead. And yet in reality, no, I knew you weren't going to kill me, and I've got everything set up to stop you from doing anything. I'm in complete control of this entire situation. So he was really cool. Yeah.
Even when we meet a character who's like the ultimate detective, this character is like one step behind that. You know, he's like, yeah, I kind of figured it out too. I'm sure I missed a few clues that he got, but you know, I can explain how he figured stuff out. Like, I love that about him.
Yep.
We also meet our third main character. He kind of, they're his partner, really, Kunakata. Who ends up having to pay for the meal that these guys decide to go have. And he is literally the babysitter of Dazai's wackiness. And he also kind of becomes a caretaker of Atsushi in his own way. He calls him the brat. He's always disrespectful to him, but he's also like one of the first people to look out for him in a serious way, where Dazai's like, hey, I got you a roommate, and hey, you should go look over there. Kunakata is like, hey, you should learn how to do this job, and you should be do it well.
Basically, what I thought of him is that it's interesting because his power is ideal, and he has this notebook, and it reminds me of my dad, in the fact that my dad, he'll write down just everything. And that's exactly what this Kunakata does. Is he, like, his schedule, his hopes and dreams, his ideal woman, his what he's gonna do, what he's gonna eat for whatever. I mean, like, everything that he believes is an ideal of everything part of his life is in this book. And if like you were to look up the definition of serious in the dictionary, like, his face is right there. But he has, I think one of the endearing parts about this show is the majority of the main characters have just huge hearts. And some of them don't show it, but they just have huge hearts. And Kunakata has one, but there's an interesting point later on in the series where that could be in jeopardy. And I actually really liked that viewpoint, that foreshadowing.
I would go so far to kind of back you up a little bit on your point, is that it's a prerequisite for working at this agency is having a big heart. The person who runs it seems to be a bit of a softie himself and kind of rules the place with an iron fist. So I can't imagine him not having done that on purpose.
With a rubber underside to it. Like, everyone snaps to whenever he says something, but if those puppy dog guys asks him something, fine, I'll allow it.
That was great how it like showed the muscles around his eyes getting tighter and tighter and tighter because he's trying so hard. No. Oh, I've broken to your cuteness. I thought he was really interesting as a counterpoint to Desai, of course, how he's like the straight guy who is supposed to be serious all the time. And when you look at his history, it's really interesting. This was, I mean, honestly, it doesn't seem like they knew each other or anything. I can't remember the dates of when they lived, so maybe they didn't even live at exactly the same time. But Kunakita is shown as eventually converting to Christianity and changing which would have subsequently changed his view on suicide, to where suicide is considered a sin in Christianity. And so if you think about that now, and you've got Desai who's always talking about it, it makes perfect sense why he's always like, no, you can't do this. And he's flipping out so much about it, more than you would get if he was not Christian, because in all honesty, that was another interesting thing about the suicide is the fact that it's actually, according to a lot of Eastern religions, it's actually not considered a bad thing. It's considered just moving on to your next life or making room for everybody else. You know, it's not even considered a big deal for a lot of people. Surprisingly enough, the life insurance policies in Japan honor suicide. In addition, it's Japanese men have a 60% higher suicide rate than the global average.
Yeah.
So it's a very common thing. And so to see him react so strongly against it, definitely to me reflected this difference in life philosophy. And that was really interesting. One other thing about Kunikida to me was that his power of Dappo poet, which allows him to turn his words into a real object, it seems like it's not really taken full advantage of, and maybe this is just his idealism as a character that he would never misuse it, right? I mean, ideal, but anything the size of a notebook, you know, he can just materialize if he understands the mechanic principles of how it works. So he could do that with gemstones or gold or anything else, anything valuable. He could just create and fund the agency. And so that kind of
seem to be hurting for cash.
They don't.
Yeah.
Ranpo's that good.
He already has. Maybe that's, you know, day one. Oh, by the way, here we go. We're paid.
Yeah, we need to have a few ingots.
Even when the money is thrown at them for this agency, they don't even, like, the president doesn't even blink an eye at it because money seems inconsequential to what they're trying to do.
Maybe Kunikida is like in the back room forging stuff. I don't know. But there was one other thing too, now that I remembered. The particular style of writing of this author, Dappo Kunikida, that was his first name. I think I've got the order right. Maybe I have the order wrong. That's the other part of his name, Dappo, was that he's credited with basically inventing the Japanese form of naturalism, which basically is kind of like having destiny. You can't escape the circumstances you're born in. So his book, The Ideal, how he's always saying, oh, this is what's going to happen 4 years from now. I'm going to find the ideal woman. It's concrete to him. It's almost like his book has become destiny. And because if you think about the psychological effect of having a word that you write in your book becomes a real object, your words dictate reality. Suddenly you're telling your own future if you're writing the events of your future and you're 100% sure it's going to happen. So I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of set this character up and show how it would psychologically affect him.
It's interesting you say that because most goal-oriented strategies for even daily life is to write it down.
Yes,
and that's interesting that you say that that's kind of a destiny. But I think one of the really funny things about this character, because he does write everything down, is when Destai starts going, making fun of him. And it's like, oh, dude, you gotta write this down. Listen to this.
He's like, that was a lie. And he'll like whisper it off to the side too. That was a lie. Those are great moments.
For the most part, his straight man bit was funny at times, and I warmed up a little bit to him at the end. Especially there's a certain moment where he smiles and it's like, oh, you're not such a harsh guy. But for the most part, he's kind of the wet blanket to this group. He's kind of the Debbie Downer.
But he keeps him on track.
But even his episode, and I don't just mean his character personality, but even his episode is kind of oh, that's heavy. You know, we haven't been this heavy, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's rough.
That's right. I mentioned. I remember in our chat you mentioned that what was episode 4 and 5. There was like a real shift.
I was talking about the sudden intense violence.
Oh,
a certain character losing their leg just. And I was like, oh, I get where this anime is going. I get what we're doing. It's kind of funny. We're making jokes. Oh my god, that leg is gone.
Which would have been fantastic, but it was like immediately back within a few seconds.
No, I'm glad it came back. I was not ready for Berserk to show up in this anime.
I don't know. I was a little bit sad when Tanizaki and Naomi survived that. I was like, oh, I'm glad now. But I was
knew
sad.
You would be.
Kill them.
Okay.
Gotta move.
So in this first episode, these three characters.
God, we're only on the first episode.
I know.
Yeah, but we got three of the biggest characters. We're good.
Yep.
They eat, and we find out that this agency is investigating a tiger in the area that's been reported, and Atsushi kind of panics at this, and he's like, "Yeah, that tiger actually attacked my orphanage, and it's been like he basically says it's been haunting him." And we get some flashbacks of his life and this tiger ruining his life. He blames it for him getting kicked out of the orphanage. So the tiger attacked, and then the orphanage is like, "We don't have enough food. Get out." And so Desai's like, "Okay, help us catch it since you're the one who knows where it is." But we find out the truth very quickly. What do you want to add?
I just wanted to add that the manner in which the orphanage officials treated him and the things that they said were so harsh and so strong that it made no sense that they would ever do that just to randomly kick a kid out and tell them, "It's better if you die in the gutter.
Yeah.
You're worthless." And those things combined with him saying that the tiger attacked the orphanage and that the tiger's been attacking him, immediately I was like, "Oh, he's the tiger." It just clicked because those things, I think that they could have been a little bit less harsh with the orphanage memories, and it might have made that mystery a little bit longer lasting.
There's a moment in the flashbacks where he sees the tiger in the mirror behind him. And as soon as the eyes flash, the camera pivots a little bit and his shadow pivots so that his head is right over the eyes, so that the eyes of the tiger are the eyes of his shadow. And I was like, oh, because I figured out, like, yeah, the tiger's obviously attached to this kid in some way. It's either hunting him or haunting him. But I wasn't quite sure where the show was going. Are we dealing with ghosts? Are we dealing with spirits? It talked about occult stuff. We all read the episode description and thought it was Occult 9 again. So I was like, yeah. I don't know what this tiger is going to be. And as soon as that scene and those eyes moved to his shadow, I was like, oh, he's the tiger. Yeah. Especially, and then he turns around and people are like, "There's a tiger," and he runs away, and you're like, they saw you and they said the tiger.
Yeah. Yep. But maybe that was intentional. Maybe they were just trying to expedite getting to this point in the story. But it just,
I will say that I appreciate that there's at least a mystery here to solve. I felt cool figuring out that clue, seeing that visual reference, and being like, yeah. You're the tiger, Mr. Man. It's like watching Sherlock Holmes and being like, that's the killer. Well, of course that's the killer. It's the only major actor who's been called into the episode. Who else is going to be the killer? Right. But it's still fun. It's fun to do. And so I did appreciate that, especially I thought we were going into either a ghost anime or a superpower anime, and we are actually getting some mysteries to this.
There's a lot more mystery than I thought, or at least attempts.
Yeah. For sure. And I think that's to its credit. It had these superhero characters, and it's like, no, let's do detective stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Basically, Desai faces this were-tiger, faces Atsushi when he transforms, reveals that he knew the whole time. He figured it out almost immediately. The tiger attacks him, and he touches it. We find out his power is to depower people with powers through his touch. And then he's like, hey, everybody, for some reason, the entire gang, the entire agency shows up. He's like, let's hire this kid. I thought when he said that he was in charge, and we find out he's not in charge. He's just a higher up who's like, hey, I'm bringing this kid back, and I think we're going to give him a job.
Yeah, and Kunakata was just, no, this is a terrible idea. What are you doing? Why are you even asking this?
Yep.
The next episode is kind of his job interview, which he doesn't know. He's like, I can't join you guys. That's not my life. I had to deal with the fact that I'm a tiger. and Desai's like, yeah, that's fine. I will help you find a job. And he's like, oh, but we got to go check out the agency real quick. And apparently there's a terrorist there who's with a bomb and taking people hostage.
This was good.
There's a big scene of like they have to take it on this guy. They play paper, rock, scissors to who's going to do it, and they make Atsushi be the decoy by pretending to be a newspaper delivery man. And they win. They get the trigger to the bomb, but then because they're arguing, the terrorist gets the trigger back, and Atsushi jumps on the bomb to save everyone. And so, who wants to talk about his thoughts?
Go ahead.
Okay. It was pretty great because he panics. He's like, oh God, we only have like 30 seconds. What do we do? And like, he like grabs the bomb. He starts looking around and he's like, oh, I remember Desai said if we can cover it with something, we can like mitigate the blast. He's like looking around and like, there's like a receptionist. He's like, well, not there. And then like a plant, not there. And then he falls on it. He's like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is a terrible idea. What is going to happen? And then, of course, the bomb does not go off. And
right, we learn it's a decoy. It was always a fake. This was always just a job interview. Everyone involved works for the agency.
Even the terrorist.
And then the president comes out and he's like, yeah, we'll hire him. That's fine. And he leaves. And then Desai manipulates Atsushi to stay like, yeah, I mean, you could go get a regular job, but you wouldn't have anything to eat and you wouldn't have a place to live. And
you have no employable skills.
We gave you a bed and we'll take that away.
Yep.
Totally strong arms him into taking this job.
Oh, that's right. The military will hunt you down and kill you.
Yeah. Don't forget, you're a dangerous monster. And Desai is kind of horrible. He has a horrible side.
Very effective.
Yeah. So that's how he gets associated with this armed detective agency, which I usually just call the agency. Now, Bungo means literary, right? So this is
right.
Literary Stray Dogs. And I take that to mean that this president takes in these strays on a regular basis. That's almost how everyone there has started, as being someone out of place or abandoned and needing to come in. And that's why they are the stray dogs. Unless it's just referring to Atsushi and Akutagawa themselves.
Well, that's the weird part, is that, like you say, Akutagawa has been called a stray dog in the anime as well, and he's definitely a villain against the agency. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it might just refer to all of them, or maybe just these two main characters, because they really feature so much in the intro sequence too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, in my head, it could be Atsushi and Akutagawa and how Desai has taken both of them in at different parts of his life. Or it's this whole agency, and that's what the president is doing with all these strays.
Yeah.
Maybe in season 2 it'll be more clearly defined.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of that, with the terrorist ends up being important in episode 3, which is Tanizaki and his sister.
And their special relationship.
Their very special relationship.
Yes.
Jeremy,
Close.
you even were like, what is going on, guys?
Yeah.
You had to stop and send the message like, everyone else seeing what I'm seeing?
What are we watching? She gets way more intimate than I've ever seen any of the, my little sister or my big sister tropes.
Yeah, it's a trope in anime for sure, but this was like almost confirming this was happening. Like,
yeah,
I will give you that pleasure I gave you again last night. Whoa, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, this is actually, once you learn about the author and the things that they've written, it fits perfectly. So Junichiro Tanizaki, and I'm probably mispronouncing all these as well, so enjoy. He wrote a series of works that ran the gamut from anything from just calm stuff to really unsettling sexual things, to the point where, maybe it was deliberate, maybe not, but it would unsettle the reader because, is this right? Is this immoral? I can't tell.
Fanfic, guys.
Yeah, exactly. However, he was also so good. He was such a wordsmith that, it doesn't go as far as Kunikida because his power lets things actually be real and materialize. But his power of, what is it called? Light snow that we see later, where he's basically able to create illusions all around people. That's supposed to reflect that. Well, in 1924, he wrote a novel called Naomi. And in this novel, it's a story about how there's this guy who wants to become more Western, and it's during a time period where Western influence is coming into Japan, and he meets what they call a modern girl, And she's young. She's like, I can't remember exactly, but it's like 15, 16 or something. And so he takes her in and decides he's going to raise her to be the perfect bride. And so it's a very unsettling, uncomfortable story about how this guy is just kind of raising his plaything, his wife, eventually maybe. And so, and her name is Naomi. So this is probably a reference. Well, it seems to be directly a reference to it, since his little sister's name is Naomi. Mm. So in that sense, it's actually perfect. It's right on the spot. If you grew up with any knowledge in the schools of Japanese literary history, this was probably like, that's, I could see those moments.
This for me was another instance of like, there's got to be a twist here that I haven't seen yet. Just like Dazai's suicide, where I'm like, maybe she's an illusion. Like it comes out of the twisted part of his mind, and he can't help the fact that there's this sister that follows him around and is overtly sexual to him. But nope, that's straight up. You just need to deal with that.
Yep. I forgot to mention that also people say that it might have had something to do with sexual tension between himself and a stepsister, the source of that book too. So that just even further compounds the whole sister trope for the author. Yeah.
So Jason, what did you think of these characters? That
they were funny. It was
creepy funny.
They made that uncomfortableness humorous, and I'm not sure how they did it because it's hard to describe. But watching it, I didn't feel uncomfortable. I've laughed at their uncomfortableness, and somehow
Tanizaki freaks out every time.
But Tanizaki, the way he freaks out, kind of takes all the awkwardness onto his shoulders for the viewer, making it more palatable. Because she's way too aggressive. But yeah, and Naomi, she runs into the Port Mafia here coming up pretty quick, so she kind of disappears for most of the anime. So I don't really have a lot of thoughts on her.
She does have one pivotal moment later that I actually really, really enjoyed, where she gets up when everybody's arguing and bickering. She disappears. She comes back in the room. She's got the president of the agency, and she's like, no one was going to make a decision, so I got this guy.
Yeah, because she works for the agency.
She's a part-timer, right? Because she goes to college.
Yeah.
I did really like Tanizaki without the sister. Like, his character, I thought, was really cool. And his ability ended up being cooler than I initially thought. When they first showed it, I'm like, he can make things hide. But the way they use that and play with it was very cool. And he's just a good-natured, good-hearted character who's in the story. Nothing totally super stands out about him, but the fact that they even brought him back later and the other episode he features heavily in made me like him even more.
I did like how he had to get over Atsushi's basically perception that he was a terrorist. I like that little conversation they have. Like, no, I really am a nice guy.
Yeah, he did apologize. Japanese apology.
Yeah.
God.
No
more references.
This episode. There's an interesting part here at the beginning where Atsushi is able to start guessing everyone's former occupations based on the way they act, the way they handle themselves. He misses a couple, but he gets close. Then they get to design, like, no one's been able to guess his former occupation. There's actually a huge money reward if you figure it out. And Atsushi, being broke, was like, you were a priest, you were this, you're this. And when we find out what Dazai's actual occupation is it the end of this episode? Or soon, that he actually used to work for the mafia of this port town. And the fact that there's a port town seems to come into play a lot. Like, it's a major dealing with this location, is that it's a port thing, and there's a mafia that is running a part of this thing, and their main competitors, or main rival, I guess, would be this agency, because they're both empowering superhumans to get work done. And they tend to, we get the sense that they fight each other a lot, right?
They have very different methodologies. It's very much like when you described what you thought this show was going to be, you said it's like Xavier versus Magneto in their respective groups. Mm-hmm. And I think that is perfectly apt when it comes to their ideologies.
Yeah, a lot of this show feels like 1940s X-Men or X-Men playing private investigator in Goodfellas or something.
Yep.
Which is cool. But they get a case here from a character named Higachi, and she's got some lawyers behind her building. They go with her, and then they're like, "Oh, this is weird because this alley doesn't have a way out. It's a dead end." And she's like, "Yeah, well, I'm actually with the Port Mafia, and I'm here to kill you."
Literally opens fire.
Right, pulls out a machine gun, and
no, two of them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
2-6,
which I thought would be like her ability or something. No, she doesn't have an ability. She just likes guns.
Yeah.
Which, in a town full of people with abilities, I'd probably carry around a lot of big guns too if I had to keep fighting.
Yeah.
Literally 2 Uzis and just starts opening fire.
Right. Yep. So here's kind of what Jeremy was referencing earlier. Naomi takes this blast of 2 Uzis to the back to save her brother, and she doesn't die from this. Mm-hmm. For all intents and purposes in this episode, she's gone. And we know why she lives, but it's really weird that she lived. Yeah. That she wasn't dead on the spot.
Exactly. That's what got me. Is like that many bullets to her back, unprotected.
They even waited a long time to kind of drop that. That she was okay. I felt, but
yeah, they did.
Anyway, when she gets shot, Tanazaki's like, okay, he uses his ability and he's going mad. He's getting ready to fight. And then the villain, one of our main villains, shows up, Akutagawa, and stabs him in the back. He has a trench coat that turns like into a monster that you can shoot out tentacles, or he turns into like a snake that he can grab things. Is that how you guys would describe it? Because I wrote down energy.
It comes out from underneath it, but for all intents and purposes, yeah.
But didn't he say at one point it's his coat? Like, it is his coat that...
Well, there's a scene where he's getting attacked from behind, and the actual back of the coat turns into this mouth and face of this demonic figure.
You're right.
And so I don't know if it's him or if it's his coat. Or
is he wearing a magical coat? Is he?
It doesn't matter what coat he's wearing.
Right.
That's what endows, which I think that's probably more likely.
What if he puts on a vest? Is it a smaller monster? No, I'm sorry.
It's really hard to describe because it seems almost Venom-like.
Yeah.
The way where it could be tentacly, but then it can be sharp and it can be hard. And it can be used to smash, but it can also be used to slice or eviscerate. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's extremely powerful as far as all the other gifts.
Right. Now, before this happened, and from very, very obvious foreshadowing, they call out this character and be like, hey, don't run into this character.
Yeah.
He is very powerful, but he is obviously a concern for this agency as strong as they are. They're like, yeah, this guy blows stuff away with his power level.
Yeah.
Which is over 9,000.
How dare you?
When he shows up, basically Atsushi tries to fight, and this is the scene I was talking about. He gets his leg just whoop, gone. And the guy was like, I was just trying to capture you, and I told you I would take your legs, and now you're putting up resistance, so leg gone. And we find out in a few moments that he's able to regenerate it back. But as soon as that happened, it was almost jaw dropping for me, because I was like, we just had a guy floating upside down in a river for minutes and he was fine. And like they were doing physical comedy. A guy jumped on a bomb and nothing happened. Like, I thought the violence was going to be pretty tame here, but that was intense.
I actually appreciated that about this entire anime, is that the majority of the anime is not battle. It's not, it's not berserk. That's, blood flying everywhere. But when it's serious, it is a Kame ga Kill style serious.
Yeah.
When they have malice and they want to maim or hurt each other, it happens. But I love this scene for Atsushi because his brain just snaps. He loses control.
Yep.
Even farther then, because he turns into the tiger basically.
100%. Yeah.
He goes all the way to tiger form, and which regenerates his leg. And from that point on, these are the X-Men. This is the Wolverine of the group to me.
I'd agree.
Which is very interesting because we start to see that this tiger is actually capable of impacting the Akutagawa's ability, his power, which his power is so lethal that if you touch it, you die basically. Because if it touches you, it's stabbing you or it's eating space or it's doing something. Like, it's a blade and it's always pressing. And so for the tiger to actually leap off of it, you could see Akutagawa be shocked by that. So that was actually a really interesting revelation. But yeah. I love all the fight scenes with Atsushi, but I don't know. That issue with Tanizaki and Naomi just bugs me really bad.
Well, Tanizaki could be okay because we've seen people get stabbed with this and walk away.
Naomi just
two Uzis to the back and you walk away breathing. I mean, 50 Cent could probably do it, but
you're right. Right. I mean, there is precedent.
Gonna party like it's your birthday.
Basically, the fight is stopped early. This is kind of just a setup for like, hey, these two are going to be their rival. Here's your villain. Here's your main hero. But Dazai shows up, touches them both, turns off the fight basically, and Akutagawa, calls for a retreat, even though that Higachi, his subordinate, is like, yeah, no, we still got them. I still got the two Uzis, and he's like, nope, we are out. This is not our fight anymore. Showing that he definitely respects or even fears Dazai's ability.
Mm-hmm.
I keep waiting for him to have a second ability, and then that was part of the suicide thing. But I was like, he's got to have more than just he turns off powers, right? But guess not.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's where we find out Dazai used to work for the Mafia. We even learn later he's the one who trained Akutagawa. Which, okay, so in terms of this whole anime, when I think about it, Dazai's kind of a dick.
He is. He totally is.
Because he was a Mafia member. He pulls this kid off the street, very similar to what he's doing with Atsushi now, and he turns him into this evil killer. And then he's like, this ain't the life for me. He goes over to the good guys. And at no point does he ever say to Akutagawa, hey, I was wrong. You should switch sides too. Or he's just like, no, I trained you to be too evil. You are totally evil. You stay over there. You suck now. I don't like you.
You're not as strong as this other new kid I got anyway.
Oh, that messes with Akutagawa. Oh, yeah, man.
But in reality, he made him what he is today, and yet totally judges him for being so horrible.
I don't know that we're being completely fair because I don't think we're completely informed. I remember them saying that there was a year where Desai was missing after he left the mob. So the Port Mafia said he disappeared for a year, and then he turned up working for the agency. So there might be a large section of story that happened in that year that changed him. Maybe he had some secret contacts with Akutagawa or something that we're not aware of yet. But as things stand, I totally agree that that's what it looks like.
I guess to me, it's just weird that in all their interactions, he doesn't say once, like, offer's still on the table.
Yeah.
I made you this way. I would like to have a chance to redeem you.
But I don't think he's ever been really straightforward. I mean, even his insults are manipulation.
That's true.
So
could be.
It's just hard to say.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. He is a dick, though. You can tell.
In the next episode, we're not going to talk about her yet. We might talk about her later. But Dr. Yusano treats everyone's wounds.
I can't. I definitely want to talk about her in 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Or
See,
8. Yeah, I think it's
now,
8.
I won't say what she really does, but the impression I got, and I'm sure it was the impression they intended,
Yes,
because
it
she
was.
like drops her coat so her shoulder's visible, and bra strap it looked like, and everything, and she's like, "Are you ready for your treatment?" And then you see him screaming, and there's like a heart-shaped dialogue bubble with his.
I see later, like, she got me 4 times.
Yeah.
But everyone isn't like, oh man, 4 times. No, they're in fear, and then you're like, that's weird.
What is going on?
But yeah,
Yep.
Jeremy, I did have the same impression with as you of
you?
what
Oh,
was
no, I
actually going on.
I did too.
Okay.
100%. There is.
We need to talk about
This is where
Grandpa.
we meet the Black Lizards, which is a group of assassins that work for the Port Mafia. They're under Akutagawa. They're even under Higachi. I keep forgetting the name. Higachi. And basically what happens in this episode is that Sushi realizes because he's the were-tiger and there's this huge bounty on him, which is why the Port Mafia is specifically after him, because they want this 7 billion yen for his capture. And he's like, okay, I'm putting these people who I'm starting to care for in danger by being here. He calls Higachi and says, I'm leaving. And this was all preempted by Kunakata being like, if you stay, I'm worried the worst case scenario is going to happen. He specifically called that out. And Atsushi's like, oh gosh, they're going to come and murder all these people.
But in that exchange, he was like, think about what you can do. And Atsushi totally mistook what he was talking about. Because what he was trying to tell him is, hey, prepare. Make yourself better. Do something to help improve the situation. Not, I need to leave right away. So the Port Mafia leaves them alone and comes after me.
Yep. Which, it's all about perspective too. Like you can totally see how for him that was a very noble thing to do. And if this agency was not as strong as the Mafia, it would have been the right thing to do. So it's that weird thing where that it's stupid and he should stay, because obviously the plot revolves around these guys, but you're like, wow, I don't know how they're going to stand up to the Mafia.
Actually, this episode ended up being really funny.
Well, and we see how powerful these 3 black lizards are. At least one of them, he's he can throw things at high speeds around. They go into a factory. A worker attacks him, and he like eviscerates his body. And one is
telekinetics,
right? And one's like a ninja, and the other guy's like ready to fight the ninja. But
that's his ability. He can fight ninja.
I don't remember what his ability was.
I don't know.
I don't either.
Or if they even showed it. But yeah, I know there's one that's a ninja.
Yeah, you're right.
Even though he leaves, these assassins are still called in to attack the agency. And as Atsushi is leaving, he hears the gunshots as they attack and all. And that's not just these 3 black lizards, like the whole Uzi.
Basically Uzi wielding.
Yeah, it looks like a 1930s squad of
Tommy
Mafia
guns.
with
They're
Tommy guns.
Yeah.
Come in and start blasting away.
Yeah. So he runs back and he gets there, and they're like throwing these guys out the window. Because they're just cleaning up, and they're like, oh, they attacked again. Aren't they gonna ever realize it never works? Yeah. It costs so much to repair the office.
Kunakata is just like, oh, this is gonna cost so much money to repair.
Yep. I thought it was hysterical too, because we got a shot of the black lizards as they were coming up to do the attack, and the leader was like, they don't even have a sentry posted. I can't believe they're so unprepared.
My favorite part was that Rampo never moved. He's sitting there drinking a drink with a marble in it. He's totally obsessed with it. Even the fight's going on, he doesn't even flinch. Like, nope. Yeah. I have a goal here.
Can you get this marble out of this bottle for me?
I want this marble.
My favorite part, though, was, I might have already said that once, that we find out that the worst case scenario is that Kunakata has to go outside to the neighbors and apologize, and it's his turn to do it. That was the worst case scenario, that it would be his turn, and it ends up being, he's like, oh, the worst case scenario did happen. I have to go apologize.
Yep.
This leads to crying from Atsushi, but basically the gist is that everything's going to be okay. And then we get to meet Ranpo.
Which is your favorite character?
It's just, he's right up there, guys. I mean, how can you not love a character like this? It was so weird. This episode starts off so strange because Rampo gets called to a case and everyone is kissing his butt. Like, Rampo, you are so great. You are so amazing, Rampo. And Natsushi is like, what is happening? Why is everyone like, everyone hates each other and argues all the time, and yet Rampo does anything and everyone's like, Rampo, you are so amazing.
Yep.
And it turns out Rampo is the only detective who gets any work done.
Yep.
He's frequently hired by the police because his ability is ultra deduction, and that he can learn all the cases or everything about a case, or he can solve
a case like motive, criminal, and like circumstances within 60 seconds. Like that's his thing, is like, I can do it under a minute.
Yeah. And I think it was like way under a minute, and sometimes with nothing but just like hearsay information seems to be all he needs, and he's like points at a map. They're over here.
Well, they play this up that like he doesn't even need to know that much. He can just activate his ability and he'll know all the details of the case.
Yep.
So they're like, Atsushi, you need to go with him on this big case he's being hired for by the police. And he's like, oh, why? Well, he can't figure out how to get on a train. If it's not solving a case, he can't do anything. Oh man, anime characters that can only do one thing.
I was thinking the same thing, but I wasn't going to say it. You suck. Never mind.
He's basically a savant.
Mm-hmm. He is. I mean, he's definitely a very much a play on Sherlock Holmes. I don't even know if that's what he's actually a play on, but you got to see Sherlock Holmes when you see this character. He even wears like a cap and the cape.
Yeah, it's actually it's a combination of two different characters. Edogawa Rampo he's considered the grandfather of Japanese mystery. And so he wrote a lot of stories that were very similar to Sherlock Holmes. They had these two characters. It was Akechi Kogoro, which was the actual detective. And then this guy had an adopted son that was named Kobayashi. And this boy was the leader of the detective gang, which was like the local kids. There's an analog in Sherlock Holmes, but I can't remember what they're called. And so these two characters together form the image of who Ranpo is, in the sense that the kid is like the 1920s era young boy that he looks like, and then the actual detective is who he acts like. So yeah, it's also just the idea that with all of these Sherlock Holmes-esque mysteries, things are often introduced that seem supernatural or impossible. There has to be some kind of magic or ability. And yet, seeing that it's purely human is something unique to those. That he's just a man, and yet he solves all these things.
Right. So. Which we'll get into the case after we talk about the character. But we find out that this character has no ability. He actually is just really good at solving cases. He's very Sherlock Holmes-y. He thinks he has an ability. Yep. He even goes out to activate it, and like the lights fly around him and the wind. But yeah,
pulls out glasses.
Yes, when I put my glasses on,
I will solve this case.
What did you guys actually think of Ranpo?
Oh, I thought he was great. His complete lack of care for anyone else, and also his time. He was just very selfish of his time. Like if anyone asked him, "Can you solve this case?" He's like, I know.
Yeah, that was great later.
But his activation of his ability is the funniest thing to watch once you realize he doesn't have a gift.
Yeah, it's all in his head.
He grabs these glasses, he like flicks them out in this dramatic pose, like they're just magical glasses. Yep. But his deduction is real and always spot on.
Yep.
As good as this character is, and as funny as he is, I think the best thing about him is that they didn't sit there and say, we need to make every important character a cooler superhuman ability. That they were fine with a few human characters being just as important to this cast as a were-tiger or, a guy who can pull guns out of a notebook. And that they didn't really go for comic book level OP overpoweredness on these guys. They're like, hey, and this guy's just really smart, and this guy can pull out small items from a notebook, and that's his power. But he's still awesome and a great fighter. He's just not the Dark Phoenix destroying the earth, you know?
Oh God.
And I can imagine when you're doing a show about people with powers, that's got to be very tempting, you know. And the fact that they really restrain themselves. I was learning about some of these guys' ability, and I'm like, that's it.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
all the ability they gave them, and they make it work so well.
Yeah. Well, they say creativity is best when you're limited, right? So maybe that concept of just limit the powers and see what kind of story you can make, I think it's proving true with this anime. So that is really cool. I liked Ranpo a lot. I thought he was a really interesting character. I think, like you say, having characters that don't have any gifts was important. I think in this case, it was even better than any other character just because of the affiliation with the mystery novel and the fact that, you know, magic's all around him, or at least perceived magic, and yet he breaks it with no magic. Like, having no magic is the magic of Sherlock Holmes, right?
And as far as the agency confirmed, he's literally the most important person there.
Yeah.
Even for the major, not just for making the money and solving the cases. When things get really bad, they need Ranpo. There's times like, we can't reach Ranpo, we're screwed.
Yeah. And that's something that I thought was kind of a little bit interesting, because like I mentioned already with Kunikida, sometimes you can see alternate uses for these powers or how they could be abused. And I think that Ranpo is another opportunity for power to be abused, even though it's just his savant ability, really. But to be able to solve any problem or situation so quickly and so easily means that whatever problem or situation that they're presented with in the future, Ranpo can always just snap of his fingers, pop the glasses on, and it's solved. So it is going to be interesting to see how that they always exclude him when they need to create drama. And I wonder if that's going to get old.
Well, I think they excelled in that near the end of the series, where, you know, he knew exactly where one of the characters was being held prisoner, but it was almost too late, and they still had to go out there and get him. Mm-hmm. Like, even though they had this great power of, we know exactly where they are now, even though we've been looking for him for hours on end now.
Yeah.
I think that is great writing in and of itself, because just because you know where an issue is doesn't mean you know how to solve it.
What's really interesting about that scene is that Ranpo could have solved it from the first 5 seconds. And wouldn't help. They really had to spend hours working, and finally they're just like, we have to get Ranpo.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was good writing that made that believable. It wasn't like, you're just building tension by pretending Ranpo. It was like, no, that totally fits Rampo's character. That he's like, the comics aren't in the newspaper, guys. They're all working to save someone's life. And he's like, where's Garfield?
Yeah. Specifically, when I mentioned that, I'm looking forward because I know we're going to be watching a second season. And so I'm thinking about, like, since they've got more to do with these characters, I wonder how many times can they use that? Like, Ranpo just doesn't want to. Ranpo doesn't want to today. Ranpo doesn't want to today. And, you know, Ranpo can give us the info, but he can't be there. How many times can you do that before it starts becoming old? And I totally agree. I think they did fantastic with that for this first season. But I wonder what they're going to do.
They've used 2 different excuses. Do they have to repeat that every time?
How many different ones? How believable will they be? Yeah,
that's fair.
I'm actually not going to spoil the case. Basically, Ranpo goes and solves this case that's baffling the police. Dazai shows up too when they're dragging the river for the murder weapon. And then they pull up Dazai and they're like, that must be that's just Dazai.
Yeah.
Like, we got another body.
And they ask him if he's committing suicide. He's like, no, because I'm alone. I fell in the river. That happened.
I need a pretty woman now.
And then he laments over the dead woman on the ground because she was so pretty.
And she she would have probably committed suicide with me.
Why couldn't she wait for me?
No, actually, this was a great scene where he's like, I know Ranpo doesn't have a gift because I was using my turn-off ability while he was doing his power.
He had touched him.
Yep.
Basically, Ranpo solves this case and it gives a nice little Sherlock Holmes, very mini Sherlock Holmes episode,
which was really cool because like all that information was presented to the audience. Like nothing was hidden. Like he didn't just pull out information the audience had not seen. Like he extrapolated the answer to this.
And they threw in a little bit of the red herring that Sherlock Holmes always has that I fell for. I was like, I know who it is. And then like, oh, it's a red herring. At the end, Dazai basically explains the case to Atsushi of what he noticed, because he's very observant as well. But he's like, yeah, I'm sure I missed things that he caught. He's way better than me. But he's able to be like, oh, this is how he figured out this, and here's how he figured out this. But basically, this whole episode is just to establish the idea of Ronpo and what he means to this agency. So if you have not seen it and you want a good little Sherlock Holmes, you should go watch that episode.
Mm-hmm.
On to episode 6. Here we go. The Azure King arc.
This gets heavy.
It does. Which is Kudakata's 2 episodes, so all the fun's gone.
Yep.
You make a valid point.
It was a good case, though, especially, over both episodes. I thought it was a good mystery. It wasn't super complicated. It wasn't super deep. I think we all figured it out before the end. But that's still fun. I still had fun being like, I think I know who did it, which was good. Kunakata's talking about his notebook ideal, and this is where Dazai is tripping on shrooms when he comes into the office, which is just, it's a great scene.
Does this happen?
Because the reason he's tripping on shrooms, he's not a drug user. He had read that they would kill him, and he got the wrong kind.
He got the psychotropic ones.
They're called in for a case, which is to solve some disappearances. And the first person they go to is a informant that Kunakata has. It's a young boy, teenage boy, who's a hacker basically, and helps him get information. Who's rebellious. And Dazai kind of picks up like, is there like a father-son thing going on here? And we learn later there kind of is, but that it comes into play later. And then they get another informant who's a driver. There was a lot of information flying in this first 10 minutes of this thing, of them setting this up, and like I wasn't quite sure how the driver fit in. He had witnessed all these people that were abducted at one point or another.
They extrapolated from that he was the abductor.
Yeah, they find out he's the abductor.
And the way they structured it made it feel like, oh, he's the bad guy of this episode. But then you quickly realize that this is going much deeper than just him. In fact, he's just the tip of the iceberg of this whole case. But what... Did he give up the location? Yeah, he gave up the hospital location.
No, he didn't. Well, he did as their informant. So he takes them to the kidnapped victims. And they go in and they find the first one, who is a woman trapped in a cage that's drowning.
And like a saw trap.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, this looked like Saw.
This was very Saw, yeah. That's actually spot on. They save her, and then they find the rest of the victims all in a separate glass cage, and then they have to watch them get gassed. And all
it looks bad on the agency because they get pictures of them.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's somebody leaks it, to the press that these guys rushed in and got all these people killed.
Mm-hmm.
They take the young woman whose name is Nobuko.
I don't remember.
Back to the agency, where it creates some great scenes of Dazai and Kunakata and how they interact with women. Dazai is like, I took her home last night. And
tried to commit double suicide with her. She wouldn't do it.
And Dazai also very much knows that Kunakata kind of likes this girl, that there's a little bit of chemistry there. And he keeps using it to rib him. And he's like, hey, if you want to ask her out, go ahead. Or I will. Whatever.
He steals his ideal book and gives it to her so she can read
That was great.
his ideal woman.
He keeps
that
reading
was
his
great.
notebook and showing it to people. Look what his ideal woman is. This is ridiculous.
Can you believe he wrote this stuff down?
And she's like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
Basically, she doesn't have any information, and Kunakata then figures out it's the driver. So they go and they capture him, and because he had established all these alibis for the victim, so it was off when they were abducted. When everyone thought they were abducted, he was posing as them.
Right, he would dress up in the clothes that they were last seen in.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's why everyone had been naked or in their underwear when they found him. The driver confesses in exchange for protection because he reveals that one of the people he kidnapped was a Port Mafia member. And right when he says that, then of course the Port Mafia shows up to retaliate and attacks, and they have to. Kunagawa shows up and attacks Kunakata. They start having a fight, and it's only for Atsushi running and getting the police to show up on time that this fight is stopped and they're safe.
But to Kunakata's credit, he held his own.
Oh boy, did he!
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, because all he had was a handgun. So I mean, he had some...
and the taser that he made.
Right. And flashbangs.
But I mean, we're constantly shown that he can hold his own in a fight because he doesn't have like an offensive power. Yeah, he can make weapons, but he doesn't have like an energy blast that he can send out or a shield or anything like that. So and even in that earlier scene where the assassins came to the office, he just was able to beat them up, even though they had powers.
Yeah, there's actually a scene later where there's a guy that's too big for Desai to take on, and they just trade spots, and Kunakata takes him out, and then Atsushi says, wow, it's almost like the difference in size doesn't matter to him at all. So I don't know if maybe he's just a particular martial arts master or, expert in like judo or something.
Yeah,
but
judo would not care how big your opponent is.
He did seem to throw a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He was always throwing people, so probably.
That's interesting. They track down. They realize that the driver was hired by organ traffickers, and when they go to the organ traffickers' base, they realize it's the old base of the Azure King, who was a terrorist bomber that Kunakata had been personally responsible for taking down. He had informed the police. The police had raided this guy's base, and the Azure King had blown himself up and all these policemen that came to arrest him. This weighs heavily on Kunakata, and in fact, that first informant, that the boy, is the son of one of these police officers, which is why he pays to hire him and uses him and looks out for him. That's why he takes a little bit of a fatherly role, even though he's like, I'm not your dad. I could never be your dad.
Yeah. I do have to correct one thing. The 5 men that died when they went in there weren't police officers. They were private detectives, because the police officers and everybody were caught up in all of the political bureaucracy shenanigans. So they
weren't for the agency?
No, they were all independent. They just happened to get there together, like at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. So that is important because this next case, or the rest of this case, really lays heavily on him, and there's a lot of reflection of him in this villain that we talk about. But basically, the Azure messenger then hires the agency to find the bomb that he has planted and disarm it before 24 hours. Did you give him a day?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
So the entire agency comes together. They have to take care of this bomb, except for Dazai, who's busy having tea with the girl.
Yeah.
I like that the president came in and was like, if we can't stop this, what's the point of us? Like, yeah, this is what we're for. This is the first instance where they can't get a hold of Rampo. They're trying to reach him. They can't. There's a lot of talking going on, a lot of red herrings, false leads. Then they do get a hold of Rampo, and he's like, okay, I know where the bomb is.
Instantly, over the phone, he's like, oh, it's at the fishing store.
And then they go into detail of how he could have possibly known that. They're like, oh, want to do a bunch of damage. Collateral damage would be the explosions from the
There's an oil
chemicals
refinery or something right next to it.
kept on the port.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
Yeah, they needed him to lay down that last piece of
Put it all
food. The
together.
police show up and they can't disarm it. They don't have the time they need to finish it. So this was really hard with the sub because they get 3 simultaneous phone calls and everyone's getting information from someone different. Rampo calls and gives some extra clues. The president calls and he gives some extra clues. And then there's a third person that
The
called.
police officer?
Yeah,
Calls
I
and
think
says
so.
They're dead.
No,
The
it
guy's
was the
dead.
informant. It was the boy informant. He found something too.
right.
Because Kunikata had asked him to do
That's right.
So those 3 all called at the exact same time, and all these conversations are happening simultaneously. The subtitles are flying by. I'm trying to write down notes. Basically, they find out the switch for the bomb is in an old military compound.
And the driver is dead. Somehow he just died. A number
I
appeared
missed
on his
that.
palm. Yep. That's why he was dead in there. There was a number on his hand. It said 00 and he was dead.
That's right.
Right.
I didn't miss that. I remember that now. Yeah, because that does come into play later. There is a guy with powers in this thing where if he gets you with his power, a number shows up and he can throw you around as he wills, and then every time he does, the number goes down. If it reaches 0, you automatically die. That seems really strong, power-wise. I was like, are you the main villain? Wow.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kunikata starts fighting him while Dazai goes for the bomb. When he does find the trigger, there's that oversized mafia guy there, and he has to fight him. And these two, Dazai and Kunikata, just like simultaneously switch places. Like just simultaneously, they know it.
Because the number guy actually puts a number on Kunikata's hand, and Kunikata he can't do anything because he can't close with him.
Right. And
so they're both impotent against their foe.
So Dazai gets the ability, hits him, and he's like, no. And then Kunikata takes out the guy in a simple throw.
Which is interesting, too, because Kunikata, his number was going down really fast. It started at like 32, then dropped to 22, then dropped to...
It wasn't one at a time.
No, he would have hit 0 really, really soon. So I think that was also really important because it was Desai saving him from imminent death.
But they needed to do it from the start that way because this blonde hair guy with the number ability, he has the key.
Mm-hmm.
And he shows it to Kunikata and then breaks it. So when Kunikata goes up to the control switch, he's able to create the key with his notebook. Yep. And that's when we learn like the details of his ability, that if he knows how it functions and he's seen it, he can make anything.
Yep. The size of his notebook or smaller.
Right. Yep. Which, could he just get a big Trapper Keeper and just...
Could it be a bigger notebook? Come on.
So they're able to disarm the bomb. There's a scene with him and that the girl that was abducted at a cemetery where he reveals that he goes to cemeteries now instead of...
He drops flowers off instead of apologizing.
Right.
Instead of crying.
Right. That's how he deals with this thing. Then Dazai calls him back to that hospital and says, I figured out who the Azure messenger is, and I've told them so that they'll show up here. And then that boy informant shows up.
And the girl had told him at the graveyard, I have things to attend to now. And she left, and I'm like...
Yeah. And so... they're like, oh, it's the boy. And he's like, no, it's not the boy. What? I told him to come here.
Yep.
The boy gets shot by the girl that had been abducted. She was the Orzer messenger. It was her husband or boyfriend who was the original bomber. And she's just trying to carry on his legacy. Dazai decides he can't shoot her because she disarms herself. And like, you're a good guy. You won't shoot me. So he gives the gun to the boy who's fine, apparently, and he shoots her dead.
Yep.
Because she killed his daddy. And,
yep. And him.
She found herself starting to become attracted to Kunikata
because he was so similar.
Because of the similarities between the Azura King and his ideals driving his actions.
Right.
Now, if I remember correctly, the Azure King only hunted and killed people that were criminals that the law was not prosecuting or was unable to prosecute.
I believe it said that.
Yeah. So this kind of took me on a wild goose chase here, because I thought for sure that Kunikita was the Azor king. There was a moment where, in the early part of this, where they had asked her, well, what do you think happened? And she says, well, I think maybe the Azor king isn't dead. I think maybe he survived the blast. And we see flashbacks of the Azor king, and he looks like he's got blonde hair, and they've got like mummy rags wrapped around his head. Yeah, and they were deliberately concealing his face and only showing the blonde hair, very similar eyes through little slits and everything. And then having good motives, the big ideal, that word being tossed around and flashed about. The girl showing up in the tank immediately at the beginning and looking at them, screaming so that they would come upstairs when they first found her. Like, all of these things made me really, really suspicious of her from the very, very beginning. And as they started building it, I was sure that Kunikita was the Azor king. And then when they at the end were like, yeah, no, he really is dead, and she's just angry, and this is just resentment. I don't know whether to be like really impressed with that storytelling or frustrated because they made a doppelganger and then said, no, that wasn't him.
I think it was fine because I don't feel like they could have made him that. How do you redeem him if he's blowing people up, and especially if he's involved in this newest plot? You'd be throwing away a character.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that like the way you would have to redeem them is kind of like you would have to do later with Izumi Kyoko when we start to interact with her. Is like, all the lives you've taken, how many can you save now? If you can turn around and you can save the lives, it's kind of like where he was saying, I've wasted so much time crying at the graves. Now I'm just going to leave flowers and go see how many lives I can save. I was like, that's an act of redemption if it was him. So, and also stepping up and trying to take care of the kid whose father was killed in the blast. I was like, that's another act of redemption. It was very confusing. But I do see your point. Like, he would have to serve punishment, and that punishment might be the ultimate punishment. So I don't know. It's just so weird.
So over the course of these two episodes, I think they showed the girl too much, and so I figured it had to be her, because why keep her around in the story so much if she's just some random character you saved? And they kept, and Dazai again is someone who's one step ahead of everyone else, despite how he's acting. So the fact he was taking her out to tea and taking her to his house, like he's latching onto this character for a reason. Mm-hmm. So that was the big clue. I thought that she was the guy. And actually, when the boy walked in, and for a second, I doubted myself. I'm like, oh, that's a good twist that you made me think go one way with all that Dazai stuff, but no, it ended up being accurate.
Yeah. So I don't know.
It was funny that he purposely let his partner think that he was banging this girl back at his house. And then, and then it was like, yes, no, I let her sleep in the other room. Why would you think that?
Yeah. What kind of a person are you? Yep.
I think the next episode might be one of my favorites because we fully get to meet the doctor, Dr. Yosano, and learn about her ability.
I love her ability.
You would. It's so morbid, but I gotta say it's amazing. It's fantastic.
The episode starts with Dazai getting captured by a young girl in a kimono. Who is talking through his cell phone, and she walks right up to him, and then stuff happens and he's gone, and we find out later he's captured. Then the rest of the episode is Atsushi getting forced to go on a shopping trip with the doctor because everyone else hid when she walked into the room.
Didn't she ask him, are you injured? He's like, no. And she's like, darn.
And this is the first time Tanizaki comes back into the story, and he's like, don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Never. As long as you work here, you must never get injured. Yeah. So they go shopping. We see that she has a fiery temper when one character is rude to her, so she breaks his hand.
Yep.
And then they get on a train, and the foreshadowing is a little too obvious in this because she's like, you gotta be careful for when the mafia will attack you again. And then suddenly, the mafia is attacking again. Letting out explosives on this subway train. And they decide to split up to save the train. She goes one way, Sushi goes the other. She runs into a guy who turns lemons into bombs, is his ability.
When life gives you lemons.
Blow them up.
Maybe it was a Portal 2 reference.
I could have sworn that had to have been it.
I was clueless. I thought he was just like had some kind of weird fascination with lemon bombs.
He was in a
too. They didn't make like lemon thuds.
Yeah,
the
tink,
ground.
tink,
They went
tink.
tink tink.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird.
So in her scenes, because we flash back and forth between the two characters, but in her scenes, she gets caught in these explosions, and this guy drives a knife into her hand, pins her to the floor, and then drops a ton of bombs on her and leaves the car and like lets her explode. And then when he comes in, like her head's out the window and she's draped across the seat, and he walks up and she just jumps up and punches him totally fine.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't understand. And she opens her doctor's kit and there's all these blades and saws in it.
Her doctor kit consists of weapons to murder you.
Yeah. Like she's got basically almost a Zanbato in there. Like Cloud's sword practically. She pulls out of that thing.
Zanbato.
She has the ability to heal anyone to perfection, but they have to be on the brink of death already.
Yeah.
So if you need slight healing, she has to murder you almost to death and then heal you.
Yes.
Brilliant. But again, Tanizaki obviously not that hurt because he got hit 4 times.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She also has a little bit. She enjoys it a little too much, I think.
Mm-hmm. So this is a really interesting one. Akiko Yasano was the author, and she was known for writing stories that were very sexual, far more than most women poets at the time. She was the first woman in Japanese culture to have actually used the word breast in a sexual connotation in a story.
Straight for you kids.
It's straightforward.
Chicken, by the way.
Chicken breast. Now, interestingly, as far as the character design goes, there was a work she's really widely known for, which is called Madarigami, and it can be translated as tangled hair or disheveled hair, and it's kind of meant to evoke the idea of sort of having your hair up, for women, of course, having your hair up really tight and really controlled, like you're a lady of society and everything is where it's supposed to be and you're proper, but then you have stray hairs down here that they're not obeying. So it's that wildness that society can't keep under control. And so they were trying to give that sexy nurse appeal with her, and that's why they were constantly having her be so sexual in her approach to everything, even though she was quite
okay. I was wondering how I was tying back into the anime when you were talking about hair, but I get it now.
So, supposedly, I even read a few things where people were saying that her hair is actually tangly. I didn't get a chance to go back and look and find out, is that why her hair is a little bit loose? But that was there. The other thing was she was very much a equal rights activist for women. And so you'll note where she's like, hey, in this modern society, women are equal to men. And I think she says, and then I'm going to beat the crap out of you or something like that.
You did say that, yeah.
Which was really funny. And then one last thing about her author information was that her power is thou shalt not die. And that was actually a work that she wrote as a poem for her brother who was dying of leukemia during a time of I believe he was a soldier in the military. And it got her a lot of guff because it kind of went against the standard of when soldiers go to fight for the country, they need to be willing to put themselves first, or to put themselves second, and to put the country first. So if he's going to die on the front lines for any reason, he's dying for the betterment of everybody. So don't encourage him to put himself first and to live. So that's where the name of her power comes from. But I guess they took it that step further where they're like, no, thou shalt not. You won't, no matter what she does to you.
I love when she points out how annoying her power is. Like, it's such an annoying ability to have.
Yep. Because she has to bring herself to that brink of death, too.
Yes.
I do love the scene where she's sitting next to Atsushi, and she's examining the leg that he lost and regenerated. And she's like, huh, no scars, doesn't hurt any, huh? You don't need me to help you with this?
Well, it's an interesting point she makes too. That it didn't regenerate. It just was like the leg was recreated completely.
Yeah, no scar, no nothing.
Yeah, it didn't like grow a new leg, and you can see where it changed. It was just the leg came back how it was.
Mm-hmm.
So she wins.
Oh, totally.
She kicks his butt. On the other side, yeah, we run into Azumi on the other side, which was the kimono girl from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Sushi has to fight her, and this is kind of like to me, this is one of like the first times where his character started feeling good to me, because he sees all the people and he's like, I can have worth if I fight to save people. Because her ability is she creates this phantom with a sword that is great at murdering. Like it's the perfect killer.
It's great at murdering,
and it takes commands through her phone. And it seemed to me like someone could call her phone and give it commands for her.
That's what was implied.
Right.
Is that if she had the phone open to her head, no matter who was talking, could give it orders.
Right. So, and it's a Kutagawa at this point. So it's kind of implying that she's not really the one responsible for what it's doing. She's just a conduit or, holding it in place. He's able to beat it back, which triggers a contingency plan of her. She has a bomb on her chest. She keeps talking about how many people she's killed.
35.
35 people she's killed.
Mm-hmm.
And it weighs very heavily on her. She decides she doesn't want to kill anymore. And actually, Atsushi gets the bomb detonator. She gives it to him, and he's able to disarm the bomb, except for it doesn't disarm it, it activates it. Mm-hmm. She's getting ready to sacrifice herself, jump off the train to save it. Atsushi uses his tiger powers, rips the bomb off her, they dive into the water. Very heroic.
This is the first time he's able to half transform, right?
He'd already half transformed a little bit in this fight. I think this is the first time he gets his feet.
I think didn't he do it a little bit when he fought Akutagawa?
He knew how to turn his hands.
Yeah, just his hands
before. But
yeah,
this I think might be the first time it was voluntary.
Yeah, it was like he was in control. It wasn't something that happened to him. So that was really neat character development where he's starting to gain control of these powers, and that once he is half tiger, he is in complete control. There's no beast like.
He's not going berserker.
So he stops. He stops his claws right at her neck.
Okay, so what did you guys think of Azumi Kyoka? Because she becomes a big player through the rest of the series.
I like her.
At one point said she was creepy.
No, I didn't think she was creepy.
The situation, though.
Oh,
I believe someone called me out for having daughters, and
right, because our main character is 18, she's supposedly around 14, but it looks like they're starting to develop a relationship. Anyways, I like the conflict that this character in of itself, without any other context, brings to the table. You have a little girl, or a 14-year-old girl, that hates what she's doing. She wants to not hurt people, but she has the deadliest ability as far as assassination goes. She doesn't have to move a muscle, and she has this puppet that has a blade that can literally cut through just about anything, except Atsushi's arm. He's able to block the blade with it. Yep. Which I love the idea of this character. She has so much conflict, and it's shown so well during her time with Atsushi before he's supposed to take her to the police. Because basically it's well, if you go to the military police, they're going to convict you for the 35 people you've killed, and they're going to execute you. If we let you go, Port Mafia is going to kill you for treason, so you're dead either way. And Atsushi just wants to save this girl. He wants to be her protector, and I think it's his first step in wanting to be responsible for the job that he has. But anyways, I have a lot of thoughts on this little girl, but I think that's the most profound that hit me, which is one of the reasons I really like this character, not just for the character itself, but how it brings dynamicy to this particular story, because of the conflict of what this thing is. It's like, oh, I can become a super powerful tiger, and I can defend people, and I can turn off people's ability. What can you do? I murder. Okay.
But with the cell phone,
with the cell phone,
right? Look at this cute little girl. What'd she do? Murder.
I gotta say, she's probably my second favorite character. For a lot of the reasons that you said. I think that she's got this sense of personal honor and morality that's really complex that you don't really see. Like, you could look at her past and say, well, why didn't she kill herself? Because that would have protected all these people if she knew that she was being used to murder. But as a little child, because she was taken in by the Port Mafia long before this, she's been doing this for quite some time. I'm not clear on exactly how long, but I know she's been an assassin for a while. So, if she was taken in young enough, it's entirely possible that it just never occurred to her and that she sees herself as this tool. I remember that there was a flashback where it showed Akutagawa using his ability on her, and she didn't even budge as it came up behind her and drew blood.
In one of the early episodes, he's like taunting her.
Yeah. And he's like, wow, she's got really good willpower and she's determined or something like that. But basically, she didn't react. She wasn't afraid. And to me, what that scene said was that she didn't care. She'd given up. So I don't think that was necessarily an interview. I think it was like she'd been there for a while, and he occasionally does that. And I think that was her way of, I don't understand I can't figure out how to get out of this situation. I don't agree with it, but I can't stop it. And she just hasn't thought of killing herself or can't bring herself to kill herself. I don't know. But when this opportunity does come, where she's got the bomb strapped to her, she knows that they're going to go off. This was when it was really clear that for her, it was a pivotal moment of, I can fix everything. I can stop everything. And she yells that when she leaps out, I don't want to kill anymore. And seeing that then following that she doesn't want to, she wants to spend a day goofing off and doing things. But at the end of the day, the last place she wants to go to, and, I'm sure we'll summarize this, but the last place she wants to go to is the precinct, because she knows that's what she deserves.
But she also doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
But she knows that that's what she needs. That's her fate. That's
right. And I thought, wow, she's tough. She's willing to do that, even though it's so horrible, so sad. But that really endeared her to me. I also really love just her entire personality of, she's such a powerful weapon, and yet she just loves all the same things that any little kid would love, or a young person, especially someone who hasn't got a chance to experience them.
Right. I think I really like the parallels between her and Atsushi that he saw and why he wanted to help her. Like, he kind of sees himself as cursed with what he has and is worried about the destruction he can cause as a full tiger. And I think he sees a lot of that in her. And also their date is very endearing to both the relationship they're building. It was a little disheartening to learn she's only 14. I had to explain that to one of my younger kids who's like, we know people who are 4 years apart. I'm like, yeah, but 14 and 18 is very different than 30 and 34.
Yeah.
But
if it was 1822, not so bad.
Without knowing the age in the anime, it played off very well. It's very nice to see extraordinary characters in small slice of life situations, and how endearing it is to them, like just having crepes is,
Mhm.
when you're a murder bot.
Yeah.
You make a wonderful point, because I do remember how hard. Like, I knew she was going to want to go to the precinct. I knew she was going to want to turn herself in. She made that fairly clear with her interview at the little soup shop. But when it happened, when they're standing across the street, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, it was just like, oh, that's right. Like, she's got to face this. Yeah, we had this wonderful slice of life moment, and we were having fun. They're experiencing all these things. We're going on all the sightseeing, and then all of a sudden,
yep,
I got to go die by the hands of the military.
Yep.
One thing, it's kind of a complaint and praise, because in a lot of animes, when a male character asks a girl character out, they always play it off as like, "Oh, I asked you by accident," or "I didn't mean a date," and then they go on a date anyway. He clearly comes out and asks her for a date. He's doing it to like help her and give her something good, right? And then she's like, "Oh, do you want a date?" And she said, and that was actually one of the things, because they agreed to this date. It was very solid. It wasn't, "Oh no, we're just two friends," and maybe it's like, "No, I want to go on a date with you." That's another reason why the ages were a little disheartening. But we've summed up a lot of what happens in this next episode. But on the flip side, there's also Dazai, who's in this basement chained to a pillar. And at first, Akutagawa's there taunting him, slams him into the wall with his hand, but the hand disappears. The coat hand disappears because, "Oh, you touched him. Your ability's gone."
Yeah.
And he taunts him and saying, "Yeah, my new protege, so much better than you."
And it messes with
so bad.
It really leads to the next like 2-episode series of events. It all stems from that. The other thing that happened after that scene, Chuya comes down. And I believe it's the next episode that we see more of that. But he's a Port Mafia executive, and we find out he used to be Dazai's old partner in the Mafia. And can't stand him anymore.
Makes me wonder if he ever could.
Right, because we get the impression that Dazai just pisses people off.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the two's date, guys, what happens at the end of the date? Wow, am I the only one who knows story recap? Okay, Akutagawa shows up.
That's right. And
that's right.
Yeah, because they're having this this moment of like, you don't really want to go do this, do you? And then just a black spike just goes right through his back, out his chest.
Yep. Which
like,
Akutagawa even says that was a killing, that was a lethal attack.
Right.
Yep.
And then they're kidnapped, and then they need Rampo again.
And that's when they need Rampo. So the agency is sitting there trying to decide what to do, and Rampo points out, "Why do we care? We didn't sign on to protect this kid. We're not his babysitters. This is a personal thing. This is, there is a bounty on him. They're just doing the bounty. What does it have to do with us?" And the president comes out and is like, "He's one of ours. We take care of ours." And poor Rampo gets scolded. It bugs him so much. And everyone else starts working on this, and like I said, he's looking for the comics, and they get a lead, and when they follow the lead, everyone there is already dead. Mafia works very effectively for Akutagawa just kind of going off on his own. Well, I guess they did want the tiger, so they just had this plan. But yeah, so they had to call in Rampo, and there's a great scene of the president going to Rampo is like, "If you do this, I will give you." Rampo's like, "What? A pay raise? I don't care. A promotion? Who cares? I will praise you." Okay, I'm on it. He's right here.
And of course, he's one of these characters that always has the closed eyes.
Right.
Yes.
He opens
he opens them huge. He says, "I will praise you." He's like, "Oh, I am doing this."
Yeah. That was great.
Really great scene. And then he reveals like, they put him on a boat, and he's about to head out to sea, because when he gets to sea, you won't have any jurisdiction to save him.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to touch him.
Right. Mm-hmm. So the president gives his high-speed boat to Kunikata, who has to rush off to save him.
Which the president has a high-speed boat on standby. I just want that to sink in.
The way he reveals it is like, I didn't want any of you to know this. But here's the key to my favorite boat. Like, that's how it felt to me, because he's like, I have this boat. Take it.
Okay, caught me.
So the next episode starts, and Chuya, he wants to fight Dazai. He's like, I know you got yourself captured on purpose. I know you're here for a reason, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to kick your butt because I'm a better fighter than you. So he uses, I don't know what his ability is, but he uses it to cut the chains. And then Dazai takes him off because he'd already picked the locks and he was already free the whole time.
He takes the shackles off. He's like, yeah.
And this scene is so good. We'll get back to the other scene, but this scene is so good. He pins Dazai to the wall, and Dazai says, I have a prediction for you. You're going to let me go. You're going to tell me the information I want, and you're going to pretend to be a little girl. And he's like, you're ridiculous. I'm about to kill you. He's like, my predictions always come true. And he reveals that he has sent a letter to the head of the mafia saying, if I die, all your information is coming out. I have put things into place. And he's like, if you do that, they will kill you. He's like, yeah, maybe they will. But they'll be really pissed if you did it first.
Yep.
So the guy's like, I have to let you go. I can't stop you. And he's like, yeah, but remember, you cut the chains. So it's going to look like you helped me leave. He's like, I could fake it that someone else saved me. Remember that little girl part? He also gets the information and he makes the guy act like a little girl. And it's because this character who came down to taunt him and beat him up is like, we're waiting for me to come down here to taunt me and mess with me. This was all part of your plan. Because I was like, yeah, that's how I work.
Because Dazai had one question for him, which was, where's the information on who put the bounty on?
Who did the bounty? That was the whole reason he got captured. Plus, he wanted to mess with his old partner.
Which is interesting, too, because if you think about it, the last time we saw him before he was in that dungeon, right? Izumi Kyoka, the girl with the...
she's the one.
Shinobi,
she attacked him.
Yeah, well, but think about it. How does her attack work? It's her ability reaches out and cuts you with its sword. So the moment that her ability touches him with its sword, it's deactivated, and now you just have a little girl.
So I don't know if anyone noticed this. She grabbed him and her ability still activated. Did you guys notice that?
Oh, she did. But remember that it's the ability touching him that stops the ability.
No, because you can touch your hair.
He has to activate his ability.
Oh, you're probably right.
To deactivate someone else.
Yeah. Okay. That was just, it's such a good scene. It just shows why I love that character so much.
Yeah. He's so controlling of the circumstances, and he's got you in checkmate before you know you're playing.
Right.
Yep.
That's a good way of putting it. Other than that, we get Atsushi and Akutagawa's big battle because Kyoka frees him, and they're trying to get away, and Akutagawa attacks him. She has bombs on the boat. I don't quite know how she got that set up. Because it's not clear if she's a prisoner or if she's brought along like, no, you're still part of the mafia. Come on, we're going.
It felt like this boat was like a smuggling boat. Like it was a boat for arms dealing. At least that's the hand-waving anime reason I gave it, for there being explosive material for her to not only put in place, but have a remote detonator for.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like already there.
But I don't have any proof for it. It's just
right. It was just something that like I was like, how did she have that ready to go?
I have no answer for that.
But Kunikata shows up and he's like, let's go. Sushi, get in the boat. We're gonna get out of here. And he's like, but what about her? He's like, you can't save everybody, man. Get in the boat. And
believe you me.
Atsushi decides to go back and fight, and there's a really cool anime battle here. If you watch an AMV of this anime, this fight's probably going to show up because it is one of the better action things we get the whole anime, and how powerful Atsushi really is. Because we already are aware of Akutagawa's full power. You know, he's impaling him on spikes, and he's making super shields, and he's able to like go way up in that air like he's flying, even though he's up on these tentacles, and fight so you can't get close to him. And Atsushi's able to overcome all of it. And there's the great part where he forms a tail so he can use it to grab him. That was a great moment.
Yep.
He even smashes the shield, which the shield is based on like eating the space. Yeah, I knew that. I knew as soon as I saw shattering glass. I'm like, that wasn't a force field. Jeremy's gonna be pissed.
The only thing that could mean is that Akutagawa doesn't have a freaking clue how his shield works. That's the only way I'm okay with that. He's made up something. He's like, yeah, it eats the space in between your bullets and me.
If we can agree that when they activate their abilities, there isn't really light going around them because of Ronpo, you could just say that the glass shattering is, again, to show the audience that he's somehow able to surpass space with his raw strength.
Still haven't fixed it for me then. If he's surpassing space with his raw strength.
Well, at least you tried. Troy. That's right. Troy.
What's really important here is that Sushi is able to rapidly heal any injuries given to him.
Yeah.
Seemingly it will. Again, becoming the Wolverine of this team.
Yep.
Then he smacks him out into the water. He passes out, but she's able to help him get to the boat. They fall onto the boat, they get away, the whole thing explodes. Ba-boom. And that's mostly the end, except for Dazai does figure out who put out the bounty, and we get a scene of this character. His name is Francis F., and I believe he's supposed to be F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote The Great Gatsby. And he is the head of a North American group of superpowered individuals called the Guild. And they're looking to take over Japan or this area. They want it back.
Well, they're the ones that put out the bounty.
Yeah, they're in charge of the bounty. But it sounded like one of the reasons they did it was to get the agency and the Port Mafia fighting. Like they want them at each other's throats more than they want the tiger.
Which almost seems like a bid to just pit two enemies against each other so you can go in and scoop them both up.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the end game is.
Which I'm assuming is a season 2 thing. Episode 11 gives us the Kenji episode. Now, I have a big complaint about this because this episode is fantastic. How dare you hide this character till the second to last episode of the season? What is that? Guys, Kenji Miyazura is awesome. He's this country boy character with super strength and just super naivety and a positive attitude and a big smile for everybody. I love this character. Probably he's in the top 3 somewhere. And he right here at the end for one episode and then he's gone again.
Yeah, he needed to be in it more because he was hilarious.
Yeah, he was really good.
I love his detective
approach.
Yes.
So basically, him and Atsushi are given a case. Well, it's not supposed to be. They tell Atsushi to go work on this case, and he ends up going with Kenji.
Who tells him to go shadow him?
I think Tanizaki was supposed to go, and Kenji volunteered. Was like, "I'll take him." I think that was the circumstances. Because Kunakata asked later, like, "Wait, why aren't you out with him?" And he's like, "Oh, Kenji said he'd go."
He's like, "No, we do not want him learning from him."
Again, I won't do the full episode, but basically, Kenji's style of investigation is just to bluntly ask everybody what they know. He goes up to a guy who's all shady. He asks him. The guy's like, "Oh, he's so nice. I'll tell you." And then he decides to ask the actual perpetrators, and they lie to him. He's like, "I believe you. I'm out." And so they attack him, assuming that he knew too much.
Yep.
And he's like, "This is how it always works." His he comes from farm life, and they play that up very much. That
I think he's I think he's Amish. The way he came off.
It's a play on Kenji Miyazawa was a children's author and poet, and so there's a lot of things that are similar to Mark Twain's Huck Finn.
Yeah, that's the impression I was getting.
Yep. And the author himself actually lived in a rural area, and the undefeated by the rain is supposed to be indicative of the idea of nothing can get him down, be it hunger, poverty, even the weather, nothing. And that's why his ability only works if he's hungry.
Well, he yes, his ability works based on his hunger, and he relates everything to how he treats cows. Like back on the farm.
Yes.
So when this gang attacks
cow.
him, he picks up cars and starts throwing them at cars because the family motto is, if a cow acts up, hit them with whatever is at hand.
I love that.
So this guy who's attacking him is like, well, here's a car. Boom!
Boom! I laughed so hard when I saw that. That was great. And he kept going. He kept talking.
Yep.
Like the poem just kept going. It was great.
Yeah, because it was very jarring. They're out on the street and they get surrounded by these guys, and he starts talking to them like just their pals, and then just all of a sudden just gets hit in the back of the head with this pipe, and he lays him out, and he's just face down on the concrete. And then they're like, "All right, we're coming for you next." And all of a sudden he stands up and he's like, that always happens."
And he also is like, they always confess like this. It's weird. And Kunakata's big thing was like, no one else's. This kid didn't work investigating this way for anybody else. It's because of the way he is and his ability to combine and make this possible. And his ability is so fantastic, guys. I loved it so much that the hungrier he gets, the stronger he gets. And so when they feed him, they're like, what happens? He falls asleep. And it's so perfect.
Yep.
There's a symmetry there that I am just digging. But basically, Atsushi does realize himself, I can't investigate like this. And he even calls like, this is insane. So it really kind of is a timeout from the rest of what's been going on in the anime for this episode, but it could have showed up earlier. I really feel like you should have put this maybe like the 4th or 5th episode, or even the start of the 2nd season. It's really weird placement for it.
If they cut out all of those redundant flashbacks, they probably could have gotten a good portion of this in.
Yeah. I did also like that these two were called the best and worst team in the same heading. It shows a picture of them just smiling together. It says best and worst team. Then we come to the last episode, which is really set up for season 2. It has to do with they're talking about this guild and how they're the ones responsible for the bounty. And then the guild just shows up, helicopter in the middle of a highway. They come inside, they meet the president. It's that F. Francis and 2 of his people. And he's like, hey, sorry about that whole tiger thing. I want to buy your company. Here's all this money. And he's like, I don't even care about the real estate or the employees. I want your license. I want your ability to employ powered people here in Japan. And of course, the president's like, no, that's the heart of this agency. I would never sell that. He's like, I'll give you my watch. It's even better. He tells him no, and you can tell it doesn't sit well with him. When they're leaving, Kenji goes with them to escort them out. And you see the elevators close with him in it, and when it opens, he's not there, and they have his hat, and they just throw his hat to the side and leave. The next day, the news is talking about a building missing, and they're like, we can't find Kenji anywhere at the agency. So the agency decides to go investigate this. They send Tanizaki again and Atsushi to investigate. And Naomi goes with them again. And it's almost a repeat back to episode 3 of them going out and she's acting creepy. But then she disappears too. And it ends up being this little red-haired girl that is with the guild. And when they go after her, they end up in this other dimension that she creates. And this dimension is there's a middle area. There's a locked door where she's keeping special people because she pulled a bunch of people in this dimension. The agents are one side, and there's a door out. And if you leave the door out, all your memories erased. The only people that stay, of course, are our main characters. And then a strange man who's looking for a girl he calls Elise. And he's in a panic that he can't find her. And so these three stay behind. Tanizaki is captured almost immediately by this giant red-haired monster girl. Is that the best way to describe it?
It looks like Raggedy Ann.
That's what
if you've ever seen a Raggedy Ann doll.
Right, and initially that's what I thought we were getting. I'm like, oh, is this the writer of Raggedy Ann? But it's not. It's the writer of Anne of Green Gables. But yeah, that was my thought. So this guild is the American authors, which I thought was really cool to bring in. To be like, hey, here's all these Japanese authors. What about American authors as the real villains? That's a cool twist. Atsushi has to try to fight, but all he can do is evade, and he's getting ready to actually flee because he has the key to open the door, but it bites him. So he's like, okay, I just got to go. I got to get help. And the strange man's like, you can't leave. That's not the way this is going to work. If you leave, you'll forget. You won't know what's going on. He's like, the only thing you can do is to counterattack. Atsushi gets captured almost immediately after that. And something's going on with this man. There's the big scene with him, like his eyes are glowing. He's obviously more than what he seems, but that's been pretty obvious from the start, I think, for everybody.
Especially when he showed that picture of the girl that's missing.
Yeah, that's right. Which we missed that a little bit. Because Akutagawa got captured by mercenaries when he was in a coma because he's still alive, and his underlings went and saved him. But at first they met the Don of the Mafia, the boss of the Mafia, and there was a little blonde girl playing at the same time. And that's the girl in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty obvious who he really is at this point.
He's the Don. Yep.
Yeah. However, it turns out when she opened the door to put Atsushi in, Tanizaki was able to use his illusion, so Atsushi isn't really in there. He's holding onto the door frame, and he's tied a ribbon around this girl's waist, and he pulls her in. He's like, we'll both go into the locked room, and you won't be able to ever turn it off. We'll always be trapped in here forever. And then he lets go, and they fall. She does have to dispel this illusion world, and everyone gets to come out. She really is freaking out because she mentions during this fight, like, if I lose, I'm done. They will kick me out of the guild, and that is she's like Atsushi. She's an orphan, I believe she said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she did.
And so Atsushi tries to help her when they come back out, and she runs away. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes in season 2. It seems like another stray dog for him.
Stray
to
dog.
save.
Yes. I think there's a really fascinating direction they could go with this too, because the people that were trapped inside of that room, we don't know how long they've been there or what missions it was that she happened to go on to catch them. Mm-hmm. They may have nothing to do with these people, with the plot that we're dealing with now, because it looked like there were a lot of people that got freed from inside that room. When they reappeared in the real world, there was a circle of like 15, 20 people.
That's true.
So I wonder if some of them come from those early missions, and if they're going to start causing problems or anything else. Maybe season 2 will have something like that in it. That would be cool, I think. And I don't think he worked hard enough to try and stop her. Like, he should have been like, no, you're not going anywhere. I've seen your ability. You're not going back to the guild. You're coming with us.
At the end of the episode, we get the big reveal of who that stranger man is, who is the mafia boss. What's her name? Sees him. Izumi sees him and like has a panic attack almost immediately. And then he walks off and in the alley, he sees all those guys. He's like, I'm the mafia boss.
Yeah.
His relationship with Elise was really funny, though. I liked that she's like, oh, I let myself get captured. I wanted you to cry.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what's going on there. I don't know what that is. He does seem like an interesting villain because I kind of was super rooting for him here at the end. He didn't feel villainous. He felt like, hey, this is just the world we live in. This is the game we're playing. Mm-hmm. I'm not against you. I'm just like, I'm doing my mafia thing.
Not against you as long as you pay the protection money. I did have a question about the guild guy that was dead. They said they caught a guild assassin and he was laying on the ground dead. Yeah. Was that Fitzgerald or was that a different one?
I don't think so, because I don't think they'd send the head of the guild to be the assassin.
Was he really the head, though? Like,
yes. Yes,
Yeah?
when they first introduced him, like 2 episodes ago, I think it's episode 10. It
call him the
says, the head of the guild on the narration. They do a very good job of writing what everyone is, title wise.
Okay.
So as season 2, as far as villain wise, we're having to deal with this Francis F. and this Mori Uguay as our main villains. What did you guys think of them? Do you like where this is going villain wise? Because we talk about villains a lot and how important they are to a series on this podcast.
It's interesting because we've actually got 2 sides to it, right? We've got the Mafia and now we've got the Guild. And the Mafia is in an interesting position that, they want to do their criminal organization thing, but now they've got this outside threat that is in common with the agency. Mm-hmm. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing might happen next season. I'm actually really excited for how this will develop. And I like how I love the writing of this show because it's so interesting with the way the characters are developing and the way the story is developing.
I like it. I think that they all seem like stray dogs fighting over territory, and I don't think that they're going to make any real alliances. I could be totally wrong, but I almost wonder if that's what the connotation is that you have groups of stray dogs all fighting over the free streets that they're roaming. And, the American pack is trying to move in on the 2 Japanese packs that have kind of divided the territory, so to speak, at least what we've seen this region. Because, there have been some pretty clear attacks against both the agency and the Mafia. And so the Guild certainly seems to have made enemies out of both of them. So I don't know what they're going to do in the second season, but I absolutely love it when you have more than 2 sides to a battle. I think it's fascinating. It's one of the reasons why I loved Halo, the first one especially. And so I will really enjoy it if we have a lot of really complex, I don't know who is my enemy and I don't know who is my friend, but I'm really looking forward to season 2 as well.
Also, let the record show that Jeremy loves a console game. Thank you.
Yes, I do. I was an Xbox fan.
Okay, let's.
I had to get into that, did you?
Yeah, I did. Let's go ahead and go to our final reviews and wrap this up. We are going to season 2 next, so we'll have more thoughts, I'm sure. Anyway, just tell me what you think. I
will go. I'm going to give it 4 Bakas. It's definitely not a perfect anime, but I am enjoying the heck out of it. Like I said in the beginning, the character development, the storytelling is very well done. There's some things that kind of bug me about it, so I can't give it a perfect score. But I'm really excited for season 2. So
I'm really glad you didn't give it a 5 because you got to have room since we know season 2 is better.
Allegedly.
Allegedly better. I also will give it a 4 Bakas out of 5 for basically the same reasons. A lot of the things that I didn't like very much, as soon as I started doing research into the authors and I started to see why they drew the parallels that they did and their choice of how they presented these authors in this context, I really liked it. It suddenly changed my perspective on it. Specifically Tanizaki and Naomi and also the suicide thing. And, so it's great. I say watch it. 4 out of 5.
I was coming in, I was going to give this a 3, but I think I'm going to give it a 4 for characters. I think the story's around a 3 for me right now, but these characters are way more endearing than I even realized. As we're talking about and we're going over their funny parts, I really like these characters. They're pretty good. So 4 Bakas for me too, and if it gets even better, that's another win for Jason. Okay. Guys, we'd love to hear your opinions on it. Like I said, season 1 isn't reviewed as highly as the upcoming season that we're going to watch. So if you want to tell us what's wrong with it, or if you want to agree with us, go ahead. You can reach us on Twitter at Baka Podcast, or send us a longer email at theanimebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast, and it will probably get back to us. If it's not getting back to us, then try those other 2 things from the beginning. Those are for sure. pretty easy what we're watching next week. The rest of this show. Bungo Stray Dogs Season 2. We'll see what happens between the Guild, the Port Mafia, and the Armed Detective Agency. And then next week will be our mini-sode where we're doing a sequel to one of our previous mini-sodes. We've never done that before, but hey, maybe we're just running out of ideas. We don't know.
There's a spin. There's a twist.
Other than that, we can't wait to talk to you more and hear from you guys. So let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.